just concluded I2U2 summit. Thanks also to my colleague Dhamu and Noor who have joined us for this briefing. Um, the as you would have all be aware, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi participated in the summit today, along with the Prime Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid, President of the UAE, and the President of the United States of America. The I2U2 was conceptualized during the meeting of the foreign ministers of the four countries, which was held in October last year. It is broadly aimed at encouraging joint investments in six mutually identified areas: water, energy, transportation, space, health, and food security. Through this grouping, the intention principally is to mobilize the private sector capital and deploy it for very many areas of economic cooperation. The key ones of them I would like to list is expertise, deploy expertise to modernize infrastructure, pursue pathways for low carbon development for our industries, improve public health and access to vaccines, advance physical connectivity between the countries in the Middle East region, jointly create new solutions for waste treatment, explore joint financing opportunities, connect our startups to I2U2 investments, and also look at opportunities in the space of fintech. These projects, these initial project areas, can serve as a model for economic cooperation and, of course, offer opportunities for our business persons and workers in this field. In today's summit, the Prime Minister had a frank and a very purposeful conversation with the other I2U2 leaders on strengthening economic ties in our respective regions and beyond. The summit had a very positive, constructive, and I would even say tangible agenda, which included discussions on promoting specific projects, specific joint projects, and also discussions on common sectoral areas for the benefit of our respective countries as also for our regions. The possible joint projects and other priorities of I2U2 cooperation have already been captured in the joint statement, which is available in the public domain for you to access. I would just take this opportunity to highlight some of the couple of key two joint projects which were discussed by the leaders and preceded in turn by preparations at the Sherpa level meetings between the Sherpa of the four countries. The first project relates to the food corridor. Under this project, the UAE intends to invest roughly $2 billion to develop a series of integrated food corridors across India, which would deploy climate smart technologies to reduce food wastage and spoilage, conserve fresh water at the same time, and also employ renewable energy sources. In this endeavor, the US and Israeli private sectors would lend their expertise as partners in this project and would also look at offering innovative solutions that contribute to the overall sustainability of the project. India welcomed the project and will provide appropriate facilitation towards its successful operation. The project has four key connects to the people on the ground. One of them, of course, is maximization of the crop yields. Two, enhancement of Indian farmers' incomes. Three, contributing overall to the food security in South Asia, and in this case, as an extension also in the Middle East. The second project is related to renewable energy. The I2U2 countries will advance a hybrid renewable project in Dwarka, Gujarat, consisting of 300 megawatts of wind and solar capacity, complemented by a battery energy storage system. The US Trade and Development Agency, USTDA, has already funded a feasibility study for this project, which is roughly the quantum of US dollar 330 million. UAE based companies are exploring opportunities to serve as knowledge and investment partners on the project. Israel and the US intend to work with the UAE and India to highlight private sector opportunities in this field. Indian companies, of course, are very keen to participate in this project and contribute to India's goal of achieving 500 gigawatts of non fossil fuel capacity by 2030. Such projects, of course, have the potential to make India a global supply chain hub in the space of renewable energy. Apart from these two specific projects, the I2U2 leaders also discussed other common sectoral areas of interest. These areas mainly related to, as I mentioned in the beginning also, how to modernize infrastructure, including connectivity, two, how to pursue pathways for low carbon development, areas of public health, solutions for waste treatment, connecting startups to the I2U2 investment platform, and the fintech sector. In the fintech sector, Prime Minister Shri Modi particularly highlighted the importance and the doability of expanding the UPI payment system across to the I2U2 areas. The summit also provided Prime Minister Modi an opportunity to convey his congratulations and best wishes to Prime Minister of Israel on assuming charge as the Prime Minister of that country. Overall, the discussions in the summit were very fruitful and productive, and there are mechanisms in place, and we hope to take forward the outcomes of this summit with our I2U2 partners and other stakeholders through these established mechanisms, which are led at the Sherpa level. I will stop here and take any questions that might be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Please, we'll take a few questions. Please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent. Why don't we start with Yeshi? I saw your hand first.
This is Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express. I'd like to know a little more about these food corridors. What does it entail? And are there places in India which have been identified where they're likely to be? And secondly, before this I2U2, there was this grouping between India, Israel, and UAE. Does that still stand or has it been merged?
The trilateral.
Yeah, trilateral.
Okay, sorry, I had lots of hands lifted one by one. I remember seeing one second. I remember seeing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Nivedita from Swarajya. Is there any specific reason behind the timing of this formation of this initiative, this particular group? And secondly, is China a factor in this?
Okay, somebody here and yeah, please, Madhuri, please.
सर मैं मधुरेंद्र न्यूज़ नेशन से I2U2 को लेकर ये कहा जा रहा है कि पश्चिम एशिया का क्वाड है, तो इसके पहले वर्चुअल समिट के बाद इस टर्म को आप कैसे डिफाइन करना चाहेंगे, पश्चिम एशिया का अगर क्वाड का है?
अच्छा, okay. Who else had a hand in 1 second? Siddhant.
Hi, sir. Siddhant from Beyond. So, what will be the mechanism of this grouping in terms of its meeting? Will it meet annually, or what's the format like?
So, I'm Akhilesh Suman from Samsung TV. I2U2 summit. This is the first summit of I2U2.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And this is the time that is coinciding the crisis in Sri Lanka, especially the food security in Sri Lanka is quite at stake. So, did you talk anything about the situation in Sri Lanka and whether the four countries can cooperate the nation that is going through worst crisis of its existence?
Since you managed to bring it in the context of the summit, we will allow that for the moment. Okay, one more. I have a few questions. Okay, let me start here. I think we've taken already a few questions, but okay, one more. One last here. Yeah, ma'am. No, one second. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah, okay.
Which one? Yeah.
सर विजयलक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से। ये जो ITU2 का जो एडवांस हाइब्रिड रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी प्रोजेक्ट है, इसका कोई टाइमलाइन है? कैसे इस पर काम होगा, कब से शुरू होगा, या उस पर अगर थोड़ी जानकारी हो?
So maybe we'll take this round and then we can. Okay, so.
Thank you. With regard to the question on the food corridor, the line of effort in this particular project relating to the food corridor is to shape it in a manner that benefits the small and marginal farmers here. The proposed food parks that are being talked about have a set of objectives which would be sought to be achieved in this. One of them includes how do you reduce through these food corridors, how do you reduce trade barriers between the economies of the I2U2? How do you, and this is a very important factor, how do you harmonize the food safety and quality standards? Three, besides harmonization, how do you also use this as an opportunity to benchmark yourself, to export the perishable food products that you would grow in this corridor and export them globally? These are not only the project is very specific, I think the outcomes of the project also, both in terms of trade facilitation mechanism as also in terms of genuine exports of the product, in this case the food products, is very, very specific. Naturally, the corridor would allow access to the strategic markets of the Gulf, starting through the UAE, where it's targeted. It would automatically also lead to a significant job creation opportunities within the Indian setup. As far as my understanding goes, this would essentially be an effort governed by the private sectors involved in both the countries, and the area of economic activity of food park will be in the state governments. I understand that as of now, the startup idea is to put it up in two states. I mean, both the states are still exploring that opportunity. I think one of them is Gujarat, the other is Madhya Pradesh, if I'm not wrong. So these are two states in which this particular food corridor, food park project would be taken up. There have also been discussions on the initial identification of what kind of food products crops would be grown there. And this initial list is not an exhaustive list, but includes things like banana, potato, rice, spices, onions, some of the focus crops areas. Obviously, going forward, this list might expand depending upon how the activity takes place on the ground. I think there were a couple of questions relating to the timing of the I2U2 summit. I think, as I mentioned in my opening remarks also, the idea of the I2U2 summit was conceptualized in October last year. Since then, the Sherpas of the I2U2 countries have been very intensely engaged, not only in shaping the substantive content of the discussions for the leaders today, but also on the timing of scheduling this summit. So I think the cooperation within the I2U2, among the I2U2 countries, and for India, each country in the I2U2 is a strategic partner. I think this cooperation, its direction, its principal economic orientation stands on its own merit and is to be taken as such and not in the context of any other country. आपका एक प्रश्न था कि I2U2 को पश्चिमी क्वाड के रूप से परिभाषित किया जाए कि नहीं. मेरे हिसाब से I2U2 को I2U2 ही परिभाषित करें तो उत्तम रहेगा. वो अपने आप में प्रत्यक्ष है, उसको किसी और रूप का परिभाषा देने की मेरे ख्याल से कोई आवश्यकता इस समय ना है ना ही उसमें वो तर्कसंगत है, ना ही तथ्य संगत है, एक प्रकार से देखा जाए तो. With regard to whether there were any discussions on the crisis in Sri Lanka and how does I2U2 look at this? As I mentioned to you, that the principal domains of economic cooperation within the I2U2 are essentially 6 or 7 of them. There are specific projects relating to these 6 or 7 domains which are under consideration. 2 of them I listed very specifically. It is our assumption and also our effort, even our objective, that specific cooperation in these projects benefits the economies of the region, but also benefits the larger global issues of food security in this case. Specifically, Sri Lanka did not come up for discussion. The format of discussions focused on the joint economic cooperation among the I2U2 countries, and also as an extension, how does it help other countries in the region and beyond. The विजय लक्ष्मी जी, जो आपका प्रश्न था हाइब्रिड से लेके, मेरे ख्याल से हाइब्रिड प्रोजेक्ट 300 मेगावाट का, जैसे कि मैंने जिक्र किया, इसमें लगभग 200 मेगावाट जो है विंड एनर्जी के रूप से है, 100 मेगावाट सोलर के उसमें है, और बैटरी स्टोरेज जो कंपोनेंट इसमें है वो लगभग 100 से 500 मेगावाट के बीच की सक्षमता का है. ये बैटरी स्टोरेज वाला जो एरिया है ये थोड़ा नया और इमर्जिंग एरिया है, लेकिन एक स्थिर और निरंतर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी सप्लाई के लिए ये एक सक्षम सुदृढ़ बैटरी सप्लाई स्टोरेज सिस्टम जो है नितांत आवश्यक पाया गया है इसके लिए. ये प्रोजेक्ट, जैसे कि मैंने कहा, भारत को एक रिन्यूएबल स्पेस में एक ग्लोबल एनर्जी सप्लाई चेन के हब बनने में सहायता करेगा. द्वारका, गुजरात में इसके स्थापना का प्रस्ताव है. इस पे आगे इसका किस तरह से इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो, प्राइवेट सेक्टर की इन्वॉल्वमेंट कैसे हो, कौन कौन सा प्राइवेट सेक्टर इसमें सम्मिलित हो, ये सब इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की जो डिटेल्स हैं ये शीर्षस्तर स्तर पे, इन पे काफ़ी बातें हो चुकी हैं, काफ़ी बातें अभी थोड़ी होनी इसमें बाकी हैं आगे जाते वक्त. I don't think there was any question. The periodicity का जो, I think there was a question relating to the Siddhant का जो प्रश्न, your question on the periodicity. I think this is under discussion, but we would expect such summits to take place at regular periodicity, given in particular the nature of the agenda of cooperation, which is very robust, very extensive, and given that we have only just started off now with extensive discussions on 2 projects and many areas, we would expect that periodicity to be frequent. That frequency is something which will get decided as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me take the next round of questions. I had already some.
I think your question on the India-Israel UAE trilaterals, I think you will find that irrespective of how the different other mechanisms come up which focus on specific areas of cooperation, the domain of other bilateral or trilateral mechanism, that continues regardless of what happens under the other structured mechanisms like I2U2.
Thank you, sir. I had a few. You're done, right? Okay. Sorry.
So this is Chandrakala from ETV Bharat. Of course, as geopolitical shifts unfold across the Western Indian Ocean, how significant is the new grouping, and what would be India's role in I2U2? Of course.
So time's now over here. So, you spoke a lot about economic issues. Everything you've spoken about so far has related to economic subjects. Considering the energy crisis in the world today, did petroleum come up? And also, sir, economic issues apart, did issues that relate to Ukraine, Iran, considering Israel and America were there, Afghanistan, terrorism, did these issues come up?
Color from the Hindu, sir. So since the food parks are related to the farmers, has this plan been discussed with the farmers?
So Maha from NDTV. So I wanted to ask you, in the context of food security, did the issue of Ukraine come up? And because the US has been critical of India's wheat ban, did that come up?
Thought I saw one more hand. We'll close with that. No. Okay. So I think that's the list. Thank you.
Thank you. The crisis in West Indian Ocean and India's role, how do we relate it to I2U2? I think that was your question. Let me also combine this with the question which came from Times Now that, we spoke, that I referred to only economic issues, whether the question relating to Afghanistan, terrorism, energy security, etc., come up or not. Let me put it this way, in order to put it in a perspective of how exactly the leaders of the I2U2 and how India looks at the lines of effort and the lines of objective of this cooperation. The principal orientation and the approach of I2U2 of cooperation is economic cooperation. As I mentioned, the objective is to mobilize the private capital in the I2U2 economies and deploy it for tangible areas of economic activity, specific projects in the fields of which I listed: water, energy, transportation, space, health, and food security. This is currently the defined scope of I2U2 economic engagement between the four countries involved in this space. As I mentioned, India has strategic partnership with each of the I2U2 countries. India's role in this would be a pivotal role, will be a key role, and will also be a role in which we would facilitate and undertake many of these areas of actual economic activity in our country. Going forward, which I mentioned to you, if you look at areas of cooperation like linking up the I2U2 countries' capital rich nature, how do we link it to the startup innovation sector in India, for example, to fintech? As I mentioned, India has phenomenal and remarkable capacities in the space of fintech, both in terms of products, in terms of services, and now increasingly in terms of platforms. Obviously, these would offer a sound basis for us to be able to expand our economic capacities into the I2U2 economies. So India's role in the I2U2 segment would be pivotal. With regard to the question on discussions with the farmers, I think when the specific food corridor project is implemented, and the manner of its implementation will naturally ensure that all the stakeholders involved in this process are taken on board and are fully consulted before these projects are implemented. Whether the issue of wheat ban, Ukraine, etc., came up, the answer is no, it didn't come up.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all for joining this special briefing. May I thank Foreign Secretary, sir, as well as Secretary Economic Relations, as well as Joint Secretary ED,